Hi Virgo, how's it going? I hope you're doing awesome today. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Lynn, and so I've cleared the energy of your cards, and I pulled 6 cards. Actually, most of these cards jumped out when I was shuffling, and this is the advice card at the very end, the Tower reversed. Some of your cards came out reversed. That just means you're getting extra protection from spirit. Okay, Virgo, this is for Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus signs. Just take what resonates and leave the rest. So the first card that came out or jumped out was the Death card reversed. Okay. So this card usually points to resistance to change. So something in your life may have already reached its natural ending, but you're having difficulty fully releasing it. So that could mean you're holding on to something that has run its course. There's a fear of what comes next. You're repeating an old pattern because it feels familiar. There's difficulty letting go of a person, relationship, belief, or situation. You know deep down that change is necessary, but you're not feeling ready yet. There's that transformation that's happening slowly instead of all at once. Or maybe you're experiencing emotional or spiritual stagnation. You want to understand, you want to analyze, organize, and control things. And the Death card reverse says you can't think your way out of this transformation. You'll have to allow it. In terms of love, what this card is telling me is that there may be an unfinished relationship or emotional attachment. So someone could be struggling to completely move on, even if they know the relationship or the old version of it isn't working anymore. Or this card could also indicate a relationship that needs to change rather than necessarily end. With regards to your career and life, you may be staying in a job or a situation or a routine because it's predictable, even though something inside of you is saying that you're ready for something different. What Spirit wants you to know is that the ending has already begun. The resistance is what's keeping you stuck. The Death card is ultimately about rebirth and transformation, but when it comes out reversed, it could mean that you're standing at the doorway of a new chapter, but you haven't quite released the old one yet. Then the second card that came out is the Hermit, upright. This card is about pulling inward to understand what needs to change. Virgo, the Hermit is especially significant for you because you are traditionally associated with the Hermit in Tarot. So having it show up in your reading right after the Death card reversed makes this feel very personal to your energy. This card says that you know something needs to change, but you're resisting it. The Hermit is saying, step away from the noise and listen to yourself. So, Virgo, you may be entering a period of solitude, reflection, and soul searching. This doesn't mean loneliness. It can mean deliberately stepping back from other people's opinions or expectations or drama or demands, so you can finally hear your own inner voice. There may be a realization coming soon. Okay? Maybe you're going to realize that you've been holding on to this because you're afraid of what will happen if you let it go. But the Hermit says you don't need everyone else to understand your decision. You just need to understand it yourself. These two cards, the first two cards with regards to love, can point to someone withdrawing emotionally or physically to figure out what they truly want. So if you're involved with someone, Virgo, you may be asking yourself if this relationship is still right for you, or if you're holding on to it because it's familiar. If you're single, you may be taking a break from relationships. Not because love isn't coming, but because you're healing and you're figuring out who you are outside of a relationship. Okay? You're not stuck. We have resistance, withdrawal, realization, and transformation. You may not be able to see the entire road yet, but you're beginning to see your next step. The Death card reversed says you've been trying to avoid a transformation. The Hermit is saying stop looking outside yourself for the answer. You already know more than you think you do. The third card that came up is the King of Cups. Okay, I'm just going to put my little stone over on top of it to keep YouTube happy. So you're moving from resistance and isolation towards emotional maturity and emotional control. Because the King of Cups is someone who feels deeply but doesn't allow their emotions to control them. He represents emotional wisdom, compassion, calmness, and learning how to respond rather than react. Okay? So you're resisting an ending or a major transformation. You're going to pull inward to understand what you truly feel and what you want. And then you're going to reach a place where you can finally handle those emotions with maturity. So there may be very strong feelings underneath the surface that you haven't been expressing. The King of Cups can sometimes represent someone who loves deeply but doesn't show everything they're feeling. So if we're thinking about love right now, if this is a love reading, it could represent a person with deep feelings for you, someone emotionally mature coming into your life, a partner who cares but doesn't communicate everything openly, or you're learning to stop suppressing your own emotions. Some of you are healing from an emotionally difficult situation, and you're choosing emotional peace instead of emotional chaos. You may have been holding on to an emotional situation because you haven't completely processed what happened. The Hermit is saying go within. The King of Cups is saying feel it, but don't let it consume you. Virgo, you don't have to stop loving someone in order to let go of what is hurting you. And could the King of Cups represent someone in your life? Absolutely. This could represent a significant person around you. Someone who is emotionally deep, compassionate, mature, or somewhat reserved about their feelings. The Death card could indicate that you haven't fully released someone or something from the past. The Hermit could indicate separation, distance, silence, or someone spending time alone. The King of Cups could suggest that there are still genuine emotions involved, either your feelings or another person's feelings. I'm not sure if this person is coming back yet. If this King of Cups represents someone else, I'm not sure if they're coming back yet. We'll have to see what the rest of the cards say. We'll have to see the remaining cards to see whether this is about reconciliation or emotional closure or a new relationship or your own emotional healing. So, Virgo, you're being asked to stop resisting a transformation, to step away from outside noise and spend some time listening to your own heart. Because what you discover there will help you become emotionally stronger, calmer, and more certain about what you truly want. And then the fourth card that came out is the Queen of Cups. So you have the King of Cups, and now you have the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups represents deep intuition, emotional sensitivity, compassion, unconditional love, emotional healing. She feels everything, but she doesn't necessarily reveal everything she feels. And when it appears beside the King of Cups, you have two people who can potentially share a very deep emotional connection. Okay? In a relationship reading, the King and Queen of Cups can represent two people who are emotionally compatible. They're two people who understand each other on a level that may be difficult to explain. There can be deep mutual feelings, emotional compatibility, strong empathy, a soul level or intuitive connection, a love that isn't necessarily being spoken aloud, two people who feel more than they're saying, and a relationship with significant emotional potential. But the cards don't automatically mean that they're together. They can represent two people who have feelings for one another, but aren't currently expressing or acting on them. Okay? And then because we have the Death reversed and the Hermit, that can suggest distance, withdrawal, unfinished business, or someone needing time alone before they can move forward emotionally. This Queen of Cups could also represent you, Virgo. If this isn't a romantic reading, the Queen could be you yourself. Then the message would be, you've spent so much time trying to understand everything logically, and now you're being asked to just trust what you feel. Okay? Your intuition knows. This Queen is telling you, Virgo, that your intuition knows. Listen to your intuition. You may already have an answer about a person or a situation, but you may have been overthinking it because the emotional truth is harder to accept than the logical one. If this is about love, these cards could be telling a story of an ending or a change that's being resisted. Then there's withdrawal and introspection. Then there's deep masculine emotion and deep feminine emotion. So that can describe two people with genuine feelings who have gone through some kind of separation or emotional distance or a complicated transition. And because both cups, court cards, both of these cups, court cards are upright, then this emotional connection is very serious. But I'm not sure yet if these two people come together, reconcile, or move apart. Let's keep going. Fifth card is the Fool. This card is all about movement, freedom, and a new beginning. This card is saying it's time to take the leap. After the Death reverse showed resistance to change and the Hermit showed you going inward, the Fool suggests you eventually reach a point where you're willing to stop looking backward and step into something new. So for some of you, you're starting over. You may be taking a chance on love. You're leaving an old situation behind. You're beginning a completely different chapter. You're trusting life without knowing exactly where it will lead. And you're letting go of the need to have everything figured out first. And that's interesting because you generally like to know the plan before taking the first step. If this is a love-focused reading for you, Virgo, the King and Queen of Cups can symbolize two people with significant emotional feelings that are being presented with an opportunity for a fresh start. There are real feelings here, but somebody has to be willing to take the risk of beginning again. The Fool doesn't promise that the relationship will work, but it does suggest a willingness to approach the situation differently rather than repeating the old pattern. The Death reverse is saying, I'm afraid to let go or change. And the Fool is saying, I'm willing to take the leap. So that's the progression here. Virgo, you've been holding on to something. You withdrew to process it. You're recognizing some deep emotions, and now you're becoming emotionally clear. You're finally going to take a leap toward a new chapter. But the Fool is also telling you to stop carrying the weight of the past into the future. There's a clean slate available, but you have to be willing to step onto it. And then your sixth card is the Moon reversed, Pisces energy. So this card says that the fog is lifting. Something that's been confusing, hidden, uncertain, or emotionally complicated is beginning to become clearer. You may finally see a situation for what it really is, rather than what you feared it was or what you hoped it would be. So the moon reversed can indicate hidden truths coming to light, confusion beginning to disappear, your intuition becoming stronger, your anxiety and fear losing their grip. You're realizing that something wasn't as frightening as it seemed. You're seeing through someone's behavior or intentions, and you're finally acknowledging a truth you've been avoiding. Okay? Again, you don't want to face this change. The moon is saying now you can finally see the truth. Another major progression. You begin the reading resisting transformation because you don't have all the answers, but in the end of your reading, you get clarity. There's a lot of emotional energy here. Whether these the King and Queen of Cups represent two people or different aspects of your emotional world, there's real feeling here. Okay? We have the Fool, a new beginning and a leap of faith, and then we have clarity. So if this is a love reading for you, Virgo, it's saying that you've been holding on to an unresolved emotional situation. You've needed time alone to understand what you truly feel. There are significant emotions involved, possibly between two people. A new beginning becomes possible, but you have to be willing to take a chance. And as you do, confusion begins to clear, and the truth about the situation becomes much easier to see. Don't ignore what is revealed. If you take the Fool's leap, you need to do it with open eyes, okay? Not blind optimism. The Fool says trust, but see clearly with the moon reversed. You're being asked to stop resisting a necessary transformation, go within, trust your emotional truth, take a courageous step into a new chapter, and allow the fog to clear so you can finally see what and who is truly right for you. You already know, Virgo, you're just afraid of what you'll have to do once you admit that you know. Your intuition is trying very hard to get your attention. You're moving out of a period of resistance, withdrawal, and emotional uncertainty toward a completely new beginning based on emotional truth. Something you've been unable or unwilling to let go of is reaching a point where the truth can no longer be avoided. The old chapter isn't finished with the Death card reversed. Okay? This card is about transformation, endings, and the clearing away of something so something new can emerge. But because it came out reversed, it indicates you're clinging to the past, you're resisting an inevitable transition, or you're remaining attached to something that has already changed. So you know something has to change, but you're not ready. That could be a relationship, it could be an emotional attachment, an identity, a lifestyle, or an old way of approaching life. Second card, the Hermit, you need to find your own truth. And again, remember, the Hermit is traditionally associated with you, Virgo. The Hermit doesn't tell you to run away from life. He tells you to step away from external noise long enough to hear your own wisdom. See the lantern in the picture on the card? The lantern represents illumination, but only enough to see the next few steps. So you don't necessarily receive the entire answer immediately. You receive the next truth you need to know. This is a period of introspection, solitude, examination, and spiritual maturity. And then we have emotional maturity with the King of Cups. Okay? The King of Cups feels deeply, but he isn't ruled by his feelings. In a relationship reading, he can absolutely represent a mature, emotionally significant man or masculine energy. But he can also represent you learning. You can feel this without allowing it to control you. The King of Cups is saying, feel it, understand it, but don't let it run your life. And then you have the Queen of Cups. So the Queen is associated with intuition, like I said earlier, receptivity, compassion, and the inner emotional world. So we have emotional understanding and we have intuitive understanding. So together they can represent two people with a profound emotional connection, if we're talking about love here. But they can also represent you integrating heart and emotional wisdom. You go inward, you discover emotional truth, and then you become capable of seeing and feeling it clearly. Then you have the Fool. You leap into the unknown. Everything changes. This card is 0 in Tarot. And 0 is both the beginning and the potential for everything. So after all that introspection and emotional processing, you reach a crossroad. The Fool says, begin again. This could mean a new relationship, a new version of an existing relationship, a new lifestyle, a new personal identity, or simply finally allowing yourself to live differently. But the Fool carries an important message. You cannot guarantee the outcome before you take the step. You may have been trying to analyze the future before making the decision, but the Fool says you can't. Because at some point, you just have to trust yourself. And then you have the Moon reversed. This is when the fog lifts. Okay? When this card comes out upright, it's associated with uncertainty, illusion, subconscious fears, dreams, confusion, and things that aren't fully visible. But reversed, it can indicate the gradual revelation of what has been hidden or misunderstood. So the message is to take this step and the truth will become clear. Something you couldn't see clearly at the beginning of the reading becomes much easier to understand by the end. So if this is a love reading, this reading is very strongly centered around an emotionally significant relationship or emotional attachment. Okay? But I don't think, I wouldn't claim that it guarantees reconciliation or a specific person returning. The King and Queen of Cups suggest mutual emotional significance or emotional compatibility, but the Death reverse suggests something about the past hasn't been fully resolved. The Hermit suggests distance, reflection, or separation that may be necessary. And the Fool suggests a new beginning is possible. And the Moon reverse says the truth about the relationship is going to become clearer. That could lead to reconciliation, but it could equally lead you to realize that moving forward without the person is actually the healthier new beginning. The cards don't force one outcome. You don't end where you started. This says I can't let go. This says I need to understand myself. I understand what I feel. I trust what I feel. I'm willing to begin again. And now I can see the truth. So something old is trying to end, but you've been resisting it because of fear, attachment, or uncertainty. Through solitude and honest introspection, you discover the emotional truth you've been avoiding. Two powerful cups, figures, suggest significant emotional energy, possibly between two people. The Fool then opens the door to a new chapter, while the reversed Moon promises that confusion, fear, and uncertainty will gradually give way to clarity. So the truth you were afraid to face becomes the freedom you needed, Virgo. Okay? This spread is about a major emotional transition that you've been resisting. There appears to be something from the past that you have not emotionally finished with yet. You may have tried to distance yourself or think logically about it or convinced yourself you should move on, but internally the situation isn't completely resolved. The issue isn't lack of feeling, it's what you're going to do with those feelings. And the strongest possibility is that this involves another person, because the King and Queen of Cups appear together, right? You're holding on to an unfinished chapter. Something should have transformed already, but you haven't completely allowed it to. It doesn't mean you want the past back. It means that part of you is still attached to a person, the person, the memories, what happened or what could have happened, what was never said, what you hoped would happen, or the version of the relationship you wanted. There's an unfinished emotional process. Maybe outwardly you say you're done with this, but internally something may still be asking, but what if? Okay? This isn't about someone else telling you what to do. It's about you being forced to look inside yourself. Okay? We have withdrawal, silence, distance, thinking, analyzing, soul searching, being alone, deliberately stepping away from emotional noise. You may have been trying to find the answer in your head when the answer actually lives in your heart. That's why the cups follow. Okay? We have the King of Cups. This is someone who feels deeply but controls what they reveal. If you're Virgo, if you're asking about a person, then this could represent a man who has genuine feelings but doesn't openly express all of them. He may appear calm, detached, controlled, or even emotionally unavailable. But the King of Cups isn't emotionless. Quite the opposite. He's someone who can feel enormous emotional depth without showing it on the outside. So this could describe you or another person connected to you. And the Queen of Cups, this is the emotional, she's the emotional counterpart. This is where the relationship possibility becomes particularly strong. King of Cups, Queen of Cups. These aren't random cards. Okay? They're a natural emotional pair. If this is a relationship reading, they could represent two people who have deep emotional feelings for one another. Not necessarily two people who are currently together. That's important. Okay? They can represent the emotional connection exists, but the relationship itself may not currently be where either person wants it to be. There may be feelings that haven't been spoken. There may be love that hasn't been acted upon. There may be an emotional understanding that exists beneath the surface while outwardly there is distance or uncertainty. The King of Cups comes before the Queen of Cups, and that can suggest that someone else's emotional energy becomes significant before you fully acknowledge your own emotional truth. So someone may have feelings, and you may sense those feelings, but you're not completely certain what to do about them. That's where the Hermit comes in. You need to step away and ask yourself, what do you actually want, okay? Not what everyone else wants, not what would make sense, not what should you do, but how do you genuinely feel? Then someone eventually takes a chance. After all the thinking, withdrawing, and emotional processing, someone says, enough, I'm going to take a chance. Okay, I'm going to take the chance. I'm willing to step into the unknown. This can absolutely represent a new beginning in love. It could mean reconnecting, starting over, dating again, allowing someone new in, changing the nature of an existing relationship, or you deciding to start a completely new chapter independently. But the Fool doesn't tell us that the outcome is guaranteed. It says the opportunity for a new beginning exists. Okay, and then we have the Moon reversed. The truth comes out. This card upright says you don't know what's real. When it comes out reversed, it says you're beginning to see what's real. So something that has been confusing for you is going to start making sense. That could be discovering someone's true feelings, recognizing your own true feelings, learning the truth about a past situation, realizing why something happened, seeing through someone's behavior, understanding that a fear was bigger than the actual problem, or realizing that something you believed about a relationship wasn't actually true, okay? And there may be a revelation. Not necessarily some huge dramatic secret, just something like, oh, now you understand, okay? So, Virgo, you're dealing with an emotionally significant situation that hasn't truly been resolved. There's a person or emotional connection that you haven't completely released. You've pulled inward because you need to understand what you actually feel rather than continuing to analyze the situation. And the King and Queen of Cups suggest deep emotional compatibility or feelings between two people, but those feelings may not have been fully expressed or acted upon. And the Fool indicates that a new beginning becomes possible when someone finally takes a risk and stops allowing fear and the past to dictate the future. And the Moon reverse says that the uncertainty surrounding the situation will eventually lift, and you will learn the truth about what this connection actually means. Okay? I don't think this reading is simply saying you're going to get back together with someone. It's saying you have to stop confusing uncertainty with a reason to remain stuck. Okay? You're holding on, find out why. Acknowledge the depth of the emotion, trust your intuition, choose a direction, and the truth will become visible once you do. If this concerns someone from your past, this reading could describe unfinished business. So there may have been a relationship or connection that ended physically, but didn't completely end emotionally. One or both people may have remained silent. One person may have withdrawn. There may be things that were never said, and there could still be genuine feelings. The Fool suggests the possibility of approaching the situation differently rather than repeating whatever caused the original ending. But the Moon is giving you a little warning. Don't fall in love with the possibility. Find out the truth. If someone returns, you need to look at what they're actually offering, not just how strongly you feel. Okay? Take the chance, but keep your eyes open. If this isn't about another person, then the King and Queen can represent two sides of you yourself. The King is emotional maturity. The Queen is intuition and emotional receptivity. So you may have spent a long time being practical, responsible, analytical, and focused on what needed to be done. And now the cards are asking, but what do you want, Virgo? Okay? The Fool represents you reclaiming your life. The Moon reversed represents you finally understanding what has been keeping you stuck. There are no pentacles and no wands in your reading. That means this isn't primarily about money, work, ambition, or physical action. It's overwhelmingly emotional and psychological. This is a major emotional and spiritual transition. Okay? You have a little relationship. No. Something that could represent a significant chapter of personal transformation is what this reading is all about. Virgo, stop holding on. You also got the Tower card as your advice card. And with that card, Spirit is saying stop holding on to what you already know has changed. Go within and be brutally honest about what your heart wants. There are deeper emotions here than you have allowed yourself to acknowledge. A new beginning is possible, but you cannot enter it carrying the fear and uncertainty of the past. Take the step when you're ready and let the truth reveal itself. What has been confusing you will not remain hidden forever, okay? You don't need to know the entire future before taking the next step. You need to stop letting fear make the decision for you. Okay? Stop resisting the change that you already know is necessary. Remember, there's resistance to some transformation here. You may be trying to avoid the disruption or confrontation or realization or uncomfortable truth that would force this transformation. Don't wait until your life has to tear it down for you. Don't wait until life has to tear it down for you. Stop maintaining something because changing it feels frightening. It could be a relationship, a family dynamic, a living situation, emotional attachment, belief about yourself, or an old version of your life. There may be something you already know isn't stable, but instead of confronting it, you may be avoiding the conversation or postponing the decision or pretending everything is fine, keeping the peace, trying to control the outcome, hoping another person will change, or staying because leaving feels terrifying, or constantly analyzing instead of acting. But the Tower reversed is saying you cannot create lasting peace by avoiding the truth. You don't want this chapter to end. You need to go within and figure out what you really want. There are deep emotions involved. Trust your intuition. Trust what your intuition is telling you. Take the leap into something new. The truth is becoming clearer. Do not ignore that truth because acting on it will shake things up. What you see may be uncomfortable. When the truth becomes clear, don't talk yourself out of it because you're afraid of the consequences. You may discover something about a person or a situation that you've already suspected. You might be tempted to think you don't want to deal with it, but the Tower reverse is saying deal with it. Not recklessly, not dramatically, not by blowing everything up, but honestly. If this is about love, the King and Queen of Cups can show deep feelings between two people. Like I said before, the Fool can show a potential new beginning. But the Tower reverse is saying don't rebuild a relationship on the same foundation that caused it to break down. Okay? If someone from the past comes back, you shouldn't say, we still love each other, so let's try again. The question needs to be what actually changed. Okay? Because if nothing has changed, the Fool would become just another cycle, right? The Death reversed already warned about repeating the past, and the Tower reversed reinforces that warning. So Spirit may be asking you to have one difficult conversation. This card can point toward avoiding confrontation. So if there's something you need to say or ask or acknowledge or establish, Spirit's saying have the conversation, not with anger, not to force an outcome, but because silence is no longer protecting you. The Hermit gives you the wisdom to know what needs to be said. And you have the King and Queen of Cups, which they give you the emotional maturity to say it without losing control. The Fool gives you courage to take the next step, and the Moon gives you clarity. Okay? Now don't run from what you know. The advice isn't necessarily leave. You want to... The Tower reversed doesn't automatically mean a breakup, a divorce, a separation, or a disaster. It just means change the structure. Sometimes a relationship doesn't need to end. The old ways of relating needs to end. The old expectations need to end. The old patterns need to end. The old version of you needs to end. Something has to change before the new beginning can truly be new. Virgo, you have known for some time that something has to change. You've gone inward. You've felt the emotions. Your intuition has been speaking. The truth is beginning to emerge. Do not allow fear of disruption to keep you in a situation that no longer fits who you're becoming. Choose conscious change instead of forced change. You don't have to wait for a crisis. You don't have to wait until you're completely broken. You don't have to wait until someone else makes a decision for you. You can make a thoughtful change before the Tower has to fall. Okay? Stop abandoning your own truth to preserve something that is no longer working in its current form. Go within, listen to your intuition, acknowledge the feelings you've been trying to manage or suppress. There is a new beginning available, but you cannot take it while clinging to the old one. When the truth becomes clear, don't be afraid of what it asks you to change. You don't have to destroy your life. You just have to stop rebuilding the same structure that keeps you unhappy. Okay? The transformation is already here. Stop fighting it. Stop resisting the change your soul knows you need. Trust yourself and step boldly into your new beginning, Virgo. So that is your reading. Thank you so much for allowing me to channel these messages for you today. I'm truly very grateful. Let me know how it goes, Virgo. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye.